do one thing.
How do you expect to attract?
Let's talk about what it means to decenter men and
in order to actually
Right here, one more girl.
This is the fastest way to attract a real provider man that will put you in your feminine marriage.
I think I spent the first part of my life learning how to make myself lovable before I ever learned what love was supposed to feel like. I knew how much importance we placed on being wanted. I knew there were ways to make yourself more desirable, more agreeable, easier to keep. I knew that love was something you hoped would happen to you, and that being chosen by the right person seemed to mean you had done something right. What I didn't understand was how easy it is to lose yourself inside that pursuit, because nobody really teaches you where love ends and self-abandonment begins. Nobody teaches you how to tell the difference between compromise and shrinking, between being patient and staying too long, between loving someone deeply and slowly organizing your whole life around keeping them. I don't remember anyone teaching me that, and when I was little, love was a fairy tale. It was beautiful, it was uncomplicated, and it was inevitable. You grow up, you meet someone, you fall in love, and that's more or less the end of the story. Happily ever after. At the same time, I was growing up in a Slavic culture, watching a completely different version of womanhood play out in front of me. Women went to work, they came home, they cooked, they cleaned, they maintained a household, they raised children, they remembered birthdays, they kept families together, all while expecting to look perfect, beautiful, and effortless. It goes without saying that they were extraordinarily capable, but looking back, I also saw women disappear inside that usefulness. Everyone needed something from them, and they gave it. Nobody explicitly told me that this is what it meant to be a good woman, but they didn't have to. Children are very good at noticing what gets rewarded. Then you reach adolescence, and suddenly love isn't just something you're willing to experience, it becomes something that says something about you. In middle school, I remember wondering if something was wrong with me because I wasn't particularly interested in boys yet. Everyone else seemed to be entering this world I hadn't received the invitation to. Then around 15, I had my first real crush, and romantic interest didn't just awaken excitement in me, it awakened every insecurity I had. For the first time, I wasn't only wondering if I liked someone, I was wondering if I was the kind of girl he could like back. I remember hearing that the guy I liked preferred girls with straight hair, so I went home, I straightened my hair, and I kept doing it. And it's such a small thing, a teenage girl straightening her hair, but there was a whole belief hidden inside that decision. Maybe if I become more of what he wants, he will want me. And once you learn that equation, there are endless ways to solve for it. Be prettier, be cooler, don't care too much, don't text too much. Don't be difficult, but don't be easy. Don't sleep with him too soon, but don't be prudish. Have standards, but don't ask for too much. Somewhere between believing in Prince Charming and actually beginning to date, love quietly changes. It stops being something you dream about experiencing and becomes something you can succeed or fail at. And when physical intimacy entered the picture, there was another layer. If I do this, will he value me less? If I don't, will he lose interest? Am I doing this because I want to, or because I want to be wanted? Because those are two very different questions. What do I want, and what will make somebody want me? And I spent a really long time confusing the two. And I don't think I'm particularly unusual for that, because just look at the questions women are surrounded by now. How do I make him commit? How do I make him obsessed with me? How do I get princess treatment? How can I attract a provider? How do I enter my feminine energy? How do I make him chase me? Should I text him first? How do I become a high-value woman? The language has changed. I don't think the obsession always has. We laugh at those old magazines teaching women how to keep a husband, but sometimes I wonder if we've just created a more sophisticated language for that same anxiety. Instead of be a good wife, it's be in your feminine energy. Instead of don't scare him away, it's don't chase. Instead of finding a good husband, it's attracting a high-value man. And I don't think all of this advice is useless. Some of it teaches women to expect more, to notice unhealthy dynamics, and to walk away. But underneath, a surprising amount of it is the same question: how do I become the woman a desirable man chooses? What if that's the wrong question? What if we spend more time asking, do I actually like him? Do I like who I am around him? Can I tell the truth here? Do I feel peaceful or confused? Do I want him, or do I want the future I've already imagined around him? And maybe most importantly, if I wasn't afraid of ending up alone, what would I choose? Because you can lose an extraordinary amount of your life trying not to lose someone else. I learned that in my first serious relationship. I loved someone, but I was constantly trying to decide if what I needed was reasonable unreasonable? Am I expecting too much? Am I too sensitive? Am I too needy? Should I stay? Should I leave? What if I leave and regret it? What if this is simply what relationships are like and I don't know how to do them properly? The difficult thing about self-abandonment is that it rarely feels dramatic while you're doing it. Usually it looks like one small compromise, then another, until you've spent months or sometimes years negotiating against yourself. And I think one of the hardest parts is that after a while, it can become genuinely difficult to actually know what you think or feel anymore. Sometimes you spend so much time trying to understand another person that you stop listening to yourself. One of the things that therapy has really helped me with is to actually have this space to untangle all of these thoughts, to better understand what I need, where my boundaries are, and to trust myself when something doesn't feel right. Because sometimes you don't necessarily need someone to make a decision for you. You need somewhere to hear yourself think clearly enough to make that decision for yourself. And that's one of the reasons I'm happy to be partnering with BetterHelp. BetterHelp lets you access therapy wherever you are, online or through the app. You can take a quiz and get matched with a credentialed therapist quickly. And if the therapist you're first matched with doesn't really feel like the right fit, you can switch anytime at no extra cost. And 82% of BetterHelp clients recommend their therapist, which I think says a lot. So if you've been thinking about starting therapy, you can click the link in the description or go to betterhelp.com/Nika and get 10% off your first month of therapy, because no one should have to go through anything alone, and BetterHelp is here with you. But it doesn't only happen inside relationships. You can center romantic love in your life when there isn't even a romantic partner in it, and I know that version too. Getting ready for a night out and wondering if maybe tonight you'll meet someone. Having an amazing night with your friends and still going home just slightly disappointed because you didn't. Or going on a great first date and then spending the next 2 days monitoring your phone. Rewriting a text because you don't want to seem too eager. Writing paragraphs explaining your feelings because some part of you believes that if you communicate your worth clearly enough, they'll finally recognize it. Or watching another friend get engaged, feeling genuinely happy for her, but then quietly wondering, when is this going to happen to me? I think there's a strange way that singlehood becomes a waiting room. Your life is happening, you're working, you're traveling, laughing, building friendships, becoming someone. But underneath it is this quiet feeling that the story hasn't properly started yet because nobody has arrived. And I think that's one of the hidden costs. Not only years spent with the wrong person, but years spent waiting for the right person to give those years meaning. Of course, women are told something very different now. Know your worth, have standards, never settle. If he wanted to, he would. Decenter men, and that is progress. But knowing the language isn't the same thing as believing it when you're actually attached to somebody. It's incredibly easy to recognize dysfunction in somebody else's relationship. Like your friend tells you one story about a man and you're ready to personally pack her suitcase. Meanwhile, you can spend 6 months constructing a legal defense for why your own situation is completely different. Because when you think someone might finally be the one, walking away isn't only losing them, you're losing finally. Finally, I found someone. Finally, dating worked. Finally, I can stop looking. And finally, I know where my life is going. But I also think we've overcorrected in another direction. There's an ideal woman emerging online. She doesn't chase, she doesn't double text, she never needs reassurance, she matches energy, she detaches, she never lets a man disturb her peace. And taken far enough, healing suspiciously starts to look like never needing anybody at all. I don't want that either. I want the people I love to affect me. I want to need people. I want to be vulnerable. I want to say I really like you, knowing that it means I could get hurt. That's intimacy. The goal can't be to become impossible to wound. And that is why I find decentering men interesting. If it means no longer measuring your worth through male attention, then absolutely. But if your identity is organized around proving how little men matter to you, then aren't they still the reference point? So maybe the goal isn't to decenter men, maybe it's to center your life. Build a life where love matters deeply without becoming the sun everything else has to orbit. Have friendships with history, make things, get embarrassingly invested in hobbies you're maybe not so good at. Go somewhere because you want to see it, buy the flowers, and have evenings alone that don't feel like evidence that something has gone wrong. And if you're single right now, I wish somebody would tell you this. This is not the before picture. You're not standing in a hallway just waiting for someone to finally open the door to your real life. This is your life. Tuesday afternoon counts. Dinner with your friend counts. The apartment you're living in now counts. The trips you take without a partner counts. And the version of you who exists before somebody loves her counts. And if love does arrive, love them. need them. Build something together and let yourself be changed by deeply knowing another human being. Just don't disappear. Keep your friendships, keep your interests, keep making things, keep asking yourself what you want, and keep something that belongs entirely to you. Because maybe the little girl who believed completely in love wasn't naive. Maybe she wasn't wrong for wanting the fairy tale. Maybe what nobody told her was that finding someone was never supposed to be the end of her story. The love story was never supposed to cost her the rest of the story. And maybe growing up isn't learning how to become so desirable that no one will ever leave you. Maybe it's understanding that the goal was never to become impossible to leave. It's to become someone who won't leave herself just because somebody else might.